Hello and salutations, it's me Salty, welcome back to 2 Cents Toys, and today I'm going to be customizing this bombed farmhouse with a removable roof. I got it on Amazon, it's like $9. I misunderstood the measurements and thought it would be good for the 3 3/4 G.I. Joe. As you can see, not quite. I mean, if you get them in like a kneeling position, you could probably fake it. But I was thinking more of like Marauders Task Force to kind of fit into a display, and if it's in the back, and probably pass it off as in scale. Basically, what we're going to do, I'm going to go over it with a wash. I'm going to do some scoring on certain details. I'll show you what I'm going to do more in depth here in a second. But just kind of wanted to give you a brief overview. So we'll do some dry brushing, some washing, some detailing, and the like. And I think it's going to turn out great. So this is basically what we're working with. You can see it's a three-dimensional, four-sided piece. You have a half-open door here, some damage clearly to the roof, windows most of the way all the way around with a fake door here. So we'll probably paint the door and these shutters a different color. First we'll kind of put a wash on them to get black in the grooves here, and then we'll dry brush over top of them. We're probably going to do a black wash on the rest of this facade on all four sides, and then do kind of a dark brown to make it look like mud, just to kind of age it up a little bit. Same with the roof patch here. We're definitely going to go over this in some black to bring out the different lines and all that, and probably dry brush gray over it. On the flip side, this is probably just for the plastic structure, but I'm going to try and paint these brown to look like the struts for the roof. I think that'll look nice. And on the inside here of what remains of the second floor, I'm going to do some scoring. So I'm going to take an X-Acto knife or another sharp razor, kind of put some lines down here to make it look wood grain, then go over it with a probably black spray paint, to be honest with you, just to cover the whole surface of it, then do a dry brush and brown to make it look like wood, so that way the fine grains that I'm going to make in there will be black as well as these lines, and then it'll just look like aged wood under it. Debating, I probably will go over these kind of structure blocks here in brown just to make it look like studs and the like. I think it'll be fun. And again, you can see it's not the right scale, but I think, by itself, kind of off in the background, it might look great for some photos or something, so we'll see how it turns out. So I'm going to do some of this off camera, like with the spray paint and the like, and then we'll just come back to it. So off camera, I spray painted the roof, and I spray painted the second floor that's going to plug in right here where my finger's at. I'm waiting for that to dry, so I'm going to go over a wash, do a light black and then brown, I think. So I'm just going to do it on this one panel, and then I'll do it to the other three, but I'll do that off camera so we're not here all day. But basically what a wash does is you take some of this paint, so I have my black and brown here. You basically mix it with a little bit of water, kind of like a watercolor. Makes it more liquidy so it'll get into all these grooves and make it look more textured. So, and I did some scoring to the doors. I'm hoping that picks up. Yes, I did cut my finger while I was doing the scoring off camera, so be careful. Use a new blade, because it won't get caught. Dull blades tend to slip, and a dull blade can still cut you, and the blade I have on my X-Acto knife is a little bit old. So let's start with black. And the other thing is using acrylic, it can be washed off, so if I don't like the way it looks, I can always wash this off and start over. So I have a little bit of black, add a little bit of water to it, and just go over it. So you got to make sure you get it nice and in there. And while it's wet, see, I have some kitchen towel or paper towel in my lap, and you'll see why here in a second. Because eventually, I'm basically filling in these grooves here, because what I'm going to do is go over a dry brush. So, and also you have a drip plate, because it will run, because it's watered down significantly. And so basically what you're trying to do is fill in these grooves as much as you can, because then with the dry brush, you're going to hit the tops of everything. So you won't be hitting grooves as much necessarily. There's always the potential for it, but it's not really what a dry brush is meant to do. Hit that door, which I don't think is going to pick up much, but you can see how it's picking up some of the scoring there, like those darker stripes. That's the scoring, which is basically just making surface damages. I also want to get it in there in the little grooves. Now, you can achieve the same thing more or less by doing a base coat of spray paint and then painting everything else on top of it, but I wanted to show you what a wash is, or basically more in-depth, because I've done washes on this channel before. I'm trying to speed up the process here, which means a lot of this probably won't set the way that I need it to set, but that's okay, because I can always do more, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's probably an easier way to do these washes, but it's just the way that I do it. It's the method that I found that works best for me, because again, I'm not a professional. This is all kind of learning as I go, kind of a self-taught sort of deal. I'm sure I could probably just add the paint directly to the water and call it a day. And I kind of like what it's doing here, super saturating here at the bottom. I kind of like that because I want it to be really dirty down at the bottom because it's a house, people walk by, dust gets kicked up and the like. And ideally, what I'd like to do, depending on how this black looks when I wipe it off, I would like to go over it with a brown to make it look more earthy, more dirty, but this black might be sufficient, but we'll find out. And then there's always the chance that if you wipe it too soon, you might wipe off everything. So, and that has happened to me in the past, you know. It's a matter of finding that good balance between water and paint, because you want it to saturate, but you also, you know, want it to be able to rub off at the end. You don't want it to be too heavy in any one area, because it'll stick out. Finish up this last little area here, and soon I'll let it dry just a little bit because I want it, you know, I don't want to wipe off everything. And that's the other balancing act, is waiting for it to dry just enough so you can wipe parts off, but not dry so much that you can't wipe anything off, and then, you know, have it be too wet and then you wipe off everything. So I'll let this dry for a second and we'll come back and I'll show you how to wipe everything off. It's still a little bit wet. So for things like these shutters here, I want the lines to stay there, so you won't wipe this way because you'll just wipe it out. So just wipe from the top, and that way you still have, you know, some dirt there. Normally, again, I would wear gloves, but my gloves for some reason love to mess with the brightness, which I don't know how to turn off. We'll just wash the hands later, because you should wash your hands anyway. You're nasty if you don't wash your hands. You see how that scoring on the door looks? That looks great. So I clearly didn't hit the shutters heavy enough, so I'm going to have to go back over those. But you kind of get the idea. Kind of brings out some of the texture there, and then we'll just do a quick dry brush in brown to kind of, you know, give it some more life. There. That makes the shutters a little bit better. I mentioned this in the in my Luke Skywalker video, how a wash doesn't, you can't really tell what set and what didn't, so you can go back over certain spots. Doing a dry brush, you know exactly what you hit when you hit it, but if you make a mistake, you either got to wipe it off with your hand or wash it and start over. There, that's a little more uniform. So the wash is done. I'm gonna wait for it to dry. Now I'll do the dry brush over top of it. Probably paint the door and the shutters a different color. Just got to figure out what I want to make them. And then, you know, once that's done, I'll do the roof and the floor for the second floor, and then the rest of it I'll do off camera, and then we'll be done. This one's mostly dry, so I'm going to start the dry brush with this brown over here, and we'll hope for the best. So just so you have a comparison, like that's what it looks like now, and that's the color it was before we did the wash. So it's already pretty much darkened up, but live dangerously. If I don't like it, it was only $9. Which, with a dry brush again, you kind of want to get some paint on there, and then try to dab it off to where it doesn't really leave any marks on like a plate, for example, and you just do kind of quick strokes over everything. So that way it only catches the surface and doesn't get down into the grooves. So you can see how it's doing a little bit. It's not doing a heck of a great job, but because we're putting dark brown on light brown, so it's not going to do that huge of a difference necessarily. It's more just to kind of bring out some of the earth tones or kind of make it look older, make it look dirtier. It's a little heavier in some spots than I would like, but you know what? That's okay. I think it's going to look fantastic as soon as it's done. Also, I should mention that this is the last custom I'll be doing with this set of brushes, because I got a new set, because this one's kind of on its last legs in terms of bristles. They had a good run. They did many a custom. Got to hit a few more spots a little bit darker, and this panel will be done. You can see here how it's really dark. It's because this spot didn't completely dry before I started. That's what happens when you're eager beaver instead of slow and steady tortoise. These things do happen. But, you know, it's a bombed house, so it's not going to, you know, look uniform all the way around, and that is A-okay. Which you'll see, the wash, you know, that's the other thing about a wash. It's hard for it to be consistent, at least with the method that I use. I'm sure there are better methods, like I mentioned earlier, but, you know, sometimes it super saturates, sometimes it doesn't, is what it is. Now, I think for the shutters, I'm going to go over them in green. I think that'll work the best, and same with the door, I'll do a green door. So I already have my green out, just kind of dab off my brush, grab up some of this green. Hopefully I like it, because it isn't really much going back. We're kind of too far ahead now. I decided to go with green because I wanted it to stand out against the brown, because I figured red would just kind of disappear into itself, you know what I mean? That might be a little too heavy down there, but that's alright. Not really going for a ton of detail here, just kind of no pun intended, broad brush strokes. Just something that'll, kind of catch your eye at a distance. I think that looks fantastic. Now let's hit the door. I could do the door in red, but I think for consistency I'm going to go with green. Again, hopefully I like the way that it looks, because there's, again, not too much in the way going back here. And yeah, I haven't washed my hands yet, because I'll wait till I'm done with all this. Okay, I think that door needs one more coat, and we will call it a day on this panel. I think that panel is more or less done. The door is kind of ugly, but again, it's a bombed house, so it's not going to look that great. And so you can see the panel side by side. This is just the wash, and this is with the brown kind of dry brush over the wash. So you can see what we're kind of going for here. So since this one's done, I'm going to wait for it to dry, and I'll take care of these other three off camera. The other pieces which I spray painted, this was originally gray, so I didn't quite hit the bottom. I didn't see the point. They're dry. They still smell like spray paint, but they are dry. So this is somewhat of a dry brush. I don't know if you can see the scoring in there that I added, like the little planks and the like. I probably didn't cut them deep enough for them to show up really, but that's actually how I cut my finger. I'm more or less doing a dry brush of sorts, but it's going to be a little bit thicker probably, just because I want it to really show up. And because I have grooves going this way, I want to go this way, or else I'll get brown in those grooves. So here we go. Which, even if I do get a little bit of brown in the grooves, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. But because we're going over spray paint, this will take a couple of coats to get on there. That's just the way it goes. Because even when it dries, the black is going to shine through a little bit, and that's fine. And because we're not doing a wash, this should dry relatively quickly. We hope. I know I said to go the other way, but I feel like this might be more effective, even though we're going to get some streaks doing it. I just feel like this is better in terms of getting kind of a wood grain texture. Kind of changed my mind midway through, which happens from time to time. It's better than the gray that we started out with. At least this way you can get the kind of plank lines, you see them, and it shows up a lot better in person. For some reason the camera's kind of washing it all out, but it'll be inside the house anyway. Worse things have happened. See that? See how it kind of looks like wood now? The black still shows up a little bit, but not too terribly much. It looks like it's been stained. I like that. And now we got to get these trusses under here, or support beams, or I guess it'd be support beams. I'm not sure, because I don't build houses for a living. I'm sure someone down in the comments will be able to tell me what these are actually called that I'm painting right here. So I think that looks pretty stellar, don't you think? I mean, it's kind of hard to make out the second set of grooves, but that's okay. And underneath, I'll probably paint all this brown as well, just to give it some extra oomph. I won't worry about detail under here so much. It's more just to kind of give it a light brushing. Just kind of paint the parts that you might see, which you probably should be using different brushes for all these different areas, but I'm a big fan of using what I got kind of deal. So I don't want anyone to ever be intimidated and think that they can't do something because they don't have all these fancy brushes and everything else, because that stopped me for a long time from doing any kind of customs. You can do most anything with what you got. Don't ever feel intimidated. And, it's fun to customize, because at the end of the day, it's in your collection. You can do what you want. So I could have painted all this purple if I really felt like it. So don't ever be discouraged or think that you can't do it, because I promise you can. Even if you think you can't, I promise you. Because I am not a painter by any stretch. I am not a sculptor by any stretch. But I do it anyway because it's fun. Do what you enjoy. If you just like watching, that is okay by me as well. But I just don't want you to ever think that you can't do this. Because if I can do it, you can do it. And there's the top, mostly dry, which is kind of the effect I was going for. Good news all around. And I'm touching everything with my fingers, because I kind of painted myself into a corner like a dum-dum. Told you, not a professional. I'm going to set that somewhere to dry, and we'll take care of the roof. And this is the roof piece, which is mostly dry, or completely. It's hard to tell, because it's black on gray. I think what I'll do is I'll take my paint pen maybe, or I might just take the brown and do broad brush strokes to make these look like the panels or whatever. But I'm going to do a brush of gray over top of this. I'll probably end up filling in some of these gaps, maybe go across, and, we'll figure it out as we go. I originally thought on doing like a red clay kind of look, but I think gray will just work best. Here goes nothing. You might be asking yourself, why did I bother spray painting it if I was just going to paint it gray anyway? Well, that is a good question. And that's my answer. That's a good question. No, I didn't want to do a wash on it just because there were too many little nooks and crannies for this to kind of not successfully wash, at least in my mind's eye. So I figured doing a base coat of spray paint, which is a method I'd mentioned earlier, like I could have done with the panels on the house or the walls of the house on the exterior. I could have done this method, but I feel like, different strokes, you know what I mean? Like some things work better for others, and I just felt that this was the best method for the roof versus a wash on the walls. I tried to do a little bit of scoring on the roof, but that ended up not really making that much of a difference, evidently. Try not to saturate your brush too much like I just did, but it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. It's just plastic at the end of the day. And I think we are close to done. There's only a couple more things I want to do, and that'll be the end product. Also, I feel like this kind of gives it a little bit of weather and a little bit of age. If I were a braver man, I'd wait for this to dry and go over with green, kind of put some moss on it, but I haven't decided if I want to do that yet or not. I might not. Depends on how frisky I'm feeling, I suppose, which is a term you'll hear me use a lot, which means if I'm feeling brave, or if I'm feeling daring, so I say frisky. There. See, I think that looks a lot better, because we still got some of the lines in there. We got the black undertones. Just a matter of going with the gray along the side, which this is a very uneven side, but we'll figure out a way. We try to anyway. And I'll just leave that black, the underside there. And I think I'll paint that gray as well, just not the tiles themselves. And that's our roof. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it has some shadows and some characteristics. I'll find a place for this to dry, and I'll come back and I'll hit the bottom of these with some wood, or with some brown, and we'll see what happens. Now that these are dry, I think that came out really, really well. I wish the door was a little bit darker, but I think that just makes it look old. So I'm down with that. On the inside's pretty plain, which I'm not, the surface is too smooth really for me to do much without taking an X-Acto and like carving things in, which that'll take forever. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my paint pen, I'm just going to go over these, and I think that'll give it enough character on the inside. Give myself a little press, and then just do this. That's why I like paint pens. Very simple, very easy to use. So I won't worry about doing it three-dimensional. I think just the surface will be fine on these, because you're going to be looking at the outside, not the inside. And I think it's already starting to look a lot better like that. So at least, you have a little something going on the inside anyway. And kind of go back over and miss any spots that you might have missed. Oops. And it's okay if it gets on the inside, because again, you're going to be mostly looking at the outside. This is just to kind of give the interior a little something. Alright, and there you go. Gives a little something to look at on the inside. I'm going to do the other three off camera, like before, because I don't think you want to see me do this for another 10 minutes. We'll come back, do the roof on the inside, and then put it together and we'll be done. So the roof is dry enough to hold on to. I think I'm going to take the paint pen and just do these slats here and hope that it shows up, because it looks like it shows up plenty fine to me. I'm not going to worry about doing three-dimensional, like getting the inside and or anything like that, because again, this is on the inside, but still, I like to make an effort at least. And unfortunately, I was looking at the floor from earlier, and it looks like the spray paint kind of bled through with the brown, so I might have to take another pass on that with the brown paint and see if I can get it to stay brown just a little bit better. Yeah, the black's kind of bleeding through a little bit. Just do a few more passes. When they start to dry, just kind of keep going back over them until they look brown, I guess. That's the thing about doing a dark undercoat with something like spray paint, and kind of takes away everything else, especially when I want it to be a bright brown like this. Because even if it becomes like a really dark brown, almost black, it will still look cool to me. There you go. Now you can kind of see what I've been doing. I think that looks great. I'll do another pass off camera on the floor part, and we'll put it together and we'll be done. First, I wanted to show the floor. I did another go at it. This time I used the painter's pen instead of the regular brown acrylic. So same method, just took the painter's pen, kind of dunked it into the little cup thing and used that instead, and it's holding a lot better. That's more the look I was going for anyway. So same method, just different paint. And there it is, folks. I kind of missed the edges more than I would have liked, but is what it is. You can kind of see the wood for that second floor, and You know, how we have the wood kind of going on the inside. Gives it some character, makes it look like there's something going on in there. I think all the way around it's pretty solid. You know, there's the roof. Kind of came out blue on camera, but it's a light gray. It's not a blue. So when you compare it to what we started with, I think this is, you know, light years beyond. I'm really proud of this. I think it's going to look great in a display. Maybe not for me, because the idea I had was for the Marauders Task Force 3 3/4, and I don't have any of those. Might send this off to somebody. Very happy with it. I think it'll look, again, I think it's going to look great, you know, in a display, maybe, you know, with the guys out in front and all that. So, one more time, side by side, so you can see what we started with. You know, we had all that. Now we got the brown on the floor, and, you know, it's not really meant to be interchangeable, but, you know, we got the roof and everything, so very happy with it. It's only $9 on Amazon. I think I improved it a little bit. If you like these videos, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know down below what you think of it. You know, was it an improvement? Was it a $9 toy and I should have left it alone? Anyway, that's all I got today. So thanks for stopping by. Until next time, I'm Salty, signing off.